knowing the spiritual path is of zero importance. We have to apply it. That's the key. We have to really do the walking and not talk about the walking.
Oh, so agree.
Insight and awareness, spiritual explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional and spiritual mentor and award-winning author, Lorraine Nylon.
Welcome, explorers. Today our guest is Hans Wilhelm. And I'm going to get Hans to explain what his YouTube channel is all about and why he does it, because it's a very interesting and beautiful way to explore spirituality and why we're here. So thank you, Hans, for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, Lorraine. I'm thrilled and delighted to speak with you and your audience and share a little bit of what I do. My main job, of course, is to be a writer and illustrator for children's books, which I've done for over the 40 years. And I've done over 200 books, published also even in Australia, I think. So that's what I usually do throughout my day. But over the years, for more than 60 years, I've studied many spiritual paths because I always wanted to know more about life and have kept it usually for myself. It was only when my father died some 15 years ago that I shared with him what might happen when he dies, because he didn't believe in life after death. But I told him that this and this could happen, just be prepared. And he didn't answer anymore. He couldn't speak anymore, but he just smiled and says, all right, that's what you believe. I know there's nothing after death. 5 years later, I was at a book signing of a medium, a very well-known one. And I was very early there, and I was sitting down in meditation, and the guy came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and says, hi, I'm Roland Kummer. Roland, when you came in, I saw you. Your father came in right away and said to me, go to this man and tell him to thank him for what he has told me before I died, because it was so helpful on the other side. Because he now works on the receiving end of souls that have died, and he sees the utter confusion of souls which have died. And so he says, write books about it and things like this. And I knew it was my father because there were other information as well. So I gave it some thought because I believe my spirituality is something very private. I respect everybody's own spirituality, and I try not to convert anybody or missionize anybody. So I says, all right, I will share it, but I believe that younger people are more interested to change or advance their belief. What should I say? When I think of people of my age, they're usually very set. And so they are not necessarily open for new ideas. But young people are looking. When I was 16, 15, I was looking for these things. So I thought I go to YouTube. So I made these very short videos where I show people visually of what happens, the connections between how we create karma, how it's stored in the planets, and how it comes back. And when you see that visually, it becomes much easier to understand. And so I approached it via the YouTube channel. Later on came TikTok, but I never joined the TikTok crowd. It's too short. But
your videos average about 8 to about 10 to 15 minutes, don't they?
Yeah, they are usually well below 10 minutes because the attention span of young people and even older people is very, very short. So I condense the information. But when you see it, you don't need too many words, because when you see how A connects to B and C, it becomes very clear and easy to understand. So I've shared in this video my very spiritual path that I've studied over the years. For the last 40 years, I am still very connected to a special path which comes directly from the absolute reality, which is given through a woman in Germany. Her name is Gabriele, and her books are everywhere in many languages. It has no organization, no teachers, nothing to join. It is really only a path between you and God. And I like that. So it's nothing, there are no teachers. There's nothing you have to pay to get this information. That information I draw for most of my videos, as well as from other paths which I've done in the past. That's just in a nutshell what I've been doing those last 10 years since I shared these videos. There are now over 130 videos on my website, and they're very short. And from the responses, as you can see in the comments, I know that they have been very valuable to many people, because they all feel very similar, but they have never seen it visually, how it all connects. And when they see it visually, suddenly everything makes sense to many, as well to myself. I make this video largely also for myself, because for me to understand it, And the guidance then is by Einstein. Einstein says, if you haven't understood it, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you probably haven't understood it yourself. And that's sort of the way how I do my videos. Very easy to understand for all age groups, because I know that a lot of parents share these videos with their younger kids.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? When you see something that's been simplified, it's easy to resonate with it. And when you resonate with something, you're actually tapping into that inner knowing, that that core of yourself. Whereas yeah, I enjoyed watching your videos. One of the questions I had, and I think one of the questions I get asked a lot is, why are we here? And you've got a little video on that. So could you give us a simplistic answer as to why are we here?
To become free again, quite simple. To
It's
let go of
very free. I like the answer.
anything that ties us back, that holds us back. I mean, this is in a nutshell. And when free again is basically meaning that this world is not our home. This is only a temporary existence here. We are only here for 800,000 hours, less than 30,000 days. Many people are much, much less than that. This is not our home. This is a schooling ground. It's an amazing schooling ground where we have an opportunity to undo karma, which is a soul burden, which we have done over the past, in past lifetimes, as well as in this lifetime, through acting, thinking, and speaking against the law of love. And that has to be corrected. And we have to understand it, and we have to make amends wherever possible. We have to ask for forgiveness and no longer do these mistakes. And by doing so, we slowly get into the higher vibration, because the entire universe is nothing but vibration, including our planet Earth here, which looks very solid, but in truth, it's just vibration. That is the lowest vibration. And then we have got the highest vibration, which we call love. And that's where we came from originally, before the so-called fall. The Bible speaks about the fall of angels. That is basically when we left our pure existence, the absolute reality, and used ego and selfishness to only think about ourselves and isolated ourselves from everybody else, including what we call God. And there we're now very isolated and living in great pain here on planet Earth, because the pain and suffering on planet Earth is nothing but karma coming back to us. And we have to either endure it to understand how much pain we have inflicted on others, or we learn to forgiveness and asking for forgiveness to use the law of grace and have our soul burden undone.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I write about it myself. Is that, think of um, your life as your university, and you're studying yourself, and whatever you've created that doesn't reside within the truth of your soul is your unresolved emotions, your emotional baggage. So I refer to that as your soul's unconsciousness, and that we're having these experiences that will drag up whatever we created, like doesn't matter what lifetime you created it, it's yours. It's going to come with you until you actually resolve it. So there's no real bypassing. It's just prolonging and repeating, prolonging and repeating. So, and I always believe that there's many souls that have, I call it the no rock unturned blueprint, where they're actually, this lifetime, their mission is to really clean up, I call it the backyard, clean up their unresolved emotions and really deal with it. And some of those people can have a lot of suffering in their lifetime, because they have agreed to drag up all the stuff that has held them in that reincarnation cycle. And that's, so Earth is, as you say, a school, and if you embrace that and allow yourself permission to, instead of judging yourself for your unresolved emotions, feel relieved that you found it, and give yourself the opportunity to resolve it and come to peace with it and understand it, so that you can, and I class evolving as understanding it and then knowing how to do something different, or experimenting to see if you can do something different and seeing how that works for you. So we're sort of on the same page, definitely.
We are, and it's rather amazing that not more people seem to be on that page. I think it's so easy to understand. Instead, people are seeing themselves as victims and blaming others and the environment and everybody else around them for their bad luck, for their blow of fate, for their illness, for their disease. And none of this comes from the outside. It does come from the outside world, but it comes from ourselves. It is only the seed that we have sown coming back to us, the harvest we are now having. And yes, there are other people who do harm onto us, but we are never the victim. It is a lesson which we have to learn and overcome in many ways. And it is sad that so people know this. And I think you're absolutely right. The life becomes more and more intense right now on planet Earth, because I believe planet Earth is rising on vibration to the point that reincarnation for many burdened souls will no longer be possible. Many souls know this is probably the last time we can incarnate on planet Earth, which is a very unique planet. That's also explaining why we suddenly have, from 1.5 billion inhabitants in the year 1900 to now 8.8 million inhabitants, an enormous jump on souls which suddenly have come here because they know on the other side, in the spiritual side, time is running out on planet Earth. This is our last chance. And suddenly we have got this enormous overpopulation, or a strong population. It is basically souls really trying hard to incarnate. And there are many souls who incarnate in the most dire and severe environment in the third world country, which by vibration they may not need to. They may be much more in a much different kind. But just to have a human body, they take anything. So there is a long line of souls wanting to incarnate right now. It's good to remember, because so many people want to get out of this lifetime. My video on suicide is probably one of the most watched ones, because
Okay.
people are really tired of it and don't know that in truth, from the other side, people's souls want to come in here, use these difficult times as a cleansing momentum for their soul.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's a lot of prophecy, like, a lot of American Indian prophecy about this time being a time where you're choosing the path of your soul. So you either, I'll put it into my words, but it's like you're either jumping on and deciding, you have to decide with your free will that you want to resolve your unresolved emotions, your soul's unconsciousness, the baggage, and that is going to be something that you give value to, or you're going to decide to just keep doing the lower vibrations and existing in, whether it's greed or narcissism and all the rest of it, but you're actually choosing a path for your soul. So I think we are in fascinating times, and it's very important for us to embrace them. And it doesn't have to be, some people hear spirituality and think they've got to, turn their world upside down, but it's just being the truth of who you are in whatever you're experiencing, and trying to really understand your reactions to whatever you are experiencing, and then choosing consciously how you want to respond to them instead of just being emotionally reactive. So,
Absolutely right. Yeah. Once we
yeah,
understand that the outside world is nothing but a mirror of ourselves,
yeah.
then everything shifts, and we really understand all the pain and suffering that we see in the world, what they do to us, is in us if we have an emotional reaction to it. Anything which triggers our pushes our button or gives us an emotional charge in the outside world is something which is not solved in us. So the person to always come to is always ourselves. Everything is pointing to ourselves, pointing to ourselves. We may think that Mr. Putin and everybody else is a devil, etc. But if we are emotionally charged with Mr. Putin, then the emotional charge tells us there is some war happening also in us, or somebody is. We are doing so also something very similar. Whatever we don't like in a certain people, and politicians are a wonderful mirror for ourselves. The very same thing is in us as well, and it's not solved. It's not easy for us to accept that, but the only reason why we have an emotional charge is because it's reflecting back to us. If we want to see a different image in the mirror, we always have to smile first, and then the mirror will follow. But we have to clean up the mirror. That's part our purpose, to be here, to clear the mirror, and can only do it by the work within ourselves, not by polishing the glass.
That's I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I just want to clarify, because I work a lot with sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse victims, and people that are in narcissistic relationships. And in the experience that you're having, you are a victim. If someone takes away your freedom, you are a victim. What we're talking about is after that. If you stay in the victimhood and it becomes your victim mentality and you become stuck in that, then you are victimizing yourself. And I know it's very easy for us to say into words, that's what you need to heal, that's what you need to resolve. And there's a whole, sometimes complex process for us to understand the simple process. You know what I mean? It takes us a while to understand it. But that's what we're talking about. So if our listeners have had whether you've been betrayed or, childhood abuse or, narcissistic relationships and lots of different things, any form of being at the end of someone else's indifference towards you, that is, yes, you are a victim in the experience. We're talking about afterwards. And afterwards, you can use all your reactions to that experience as an opportunity to really look to see what's within yourself. And it becomes a pathway for you of recovery and also reconnection and hopefully resolution and evolution.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's absolutely right. Yeah, nobody has the right to abuse us, to dominate us, tell us what to do. Nobody has the right. And in any relationship we are in where this happens, we should do whatever necessary legal action or remove ourselves and so on. Not only for ourselves, it's also the other person, so that the other person no longer creates negative karma himself by abusing us. So we remove ourselves for two reasons, either to protect ourselves as well as to protect the other person for no longer being able to abuse ourselves. So we do it out of love as well for the other person. And even if the most horrific things have happened to us, there is a history here as well. There is something in the past. In many cases, we don't know what it is, why we are
Yeah,
suddenly in this abusive relationship as a child and so on. But there is a reason for it. And the reason can be karma, can also be, and this is very important as well to remember, that we have chosen this life to develop a certain skill of tolerance, of love, of forgiveness, whatever it is, what our soul needs to learn, that we purposely put ourselves into this situation, which is very painful, very ugly, very nasty, so that our soul can grow, because we can only grow in an environment, opposite environment. Because comfort and growth does not go together. So if we want to grow, we need a bit of challenge. And
true.
therefore, our soul chooses prior birth sometimes a very challenging situation. We can do that for ourselves. We can do it also for someone else, to help another person, to be of service. Like, for instance, sometimes you have a handicap, you incarnate as a handicap, to give another person the opportunity to become a caretaker, to develop the skills of love. So there are many, 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 many reasons. We should never, ever try to analyze or speculate why a certain person has a certain karma. That is totally between that person and God. And we will never know it. Of course, we can speak in general terms why certain
Yeah.
things happen, but individually, never do that.
And
Not,
that's one thing that is important, is that your own path of evolution or spirituality is unique to you, and it's about you and your relationship with yourself and you and your relationship from whatever you want to refer to where we come from, that you actually know that you're part of a bigger picture, and there's a purpose and meaningfulness to your life. This isn't just a random event. There's purpose and meaning to what you're experiencing, and it's important that you really give yourself permission to consciously decide that you want to be aware of yourself, because we can sleepwalk through life and we're on the treadmill and we're just moving but we're not going anywhere, whereas we've got this brilliant opportunity at life school, as you refer to it, earth school, to actually walk a journey. And sometimes it's not a pleasant one. Other times it's brilliant and you know it. So it's a up down, turn you around, upside down, all the rest of it. And sometimes you're going to feel splattered on the path and have to pull yourself out of a tunnel, emotional tunnel. But it is all part of the journey. And if you're consciously aware of that, it changes your attitude towards what you're experiencing. I was going to say, I think that's why your videos are so important, because they're simplistic and it reminds us of the journey that we're on.
yeah. And if you see the video on suicide, for instance, nothing is given to us which we cannot cope with. Everything is carefully calibrated for our soul strengths. Everybody's souls is differently strong. Some are strong souls and some are weak souls. But whatever we are facing is carefully calibrated that we are capable of mastering it. So everybody has a different kind of task, but it's carefully measured for our soul, for our life here on earth. So nobody gets too much, but it does look that way sometimes. I fully agree.
Yes,
That's definitely this overwhelms us because our ego can't take it. Our ego is frightened of death
yeah,
because that's what the ego identifies with our body. But we are not our body. Our body is our vehicle. So whenever we are very frightened or we can't go anywhere, etc., it is usually our ego which is scared of death, which
yeah.
actually runs our violent kind of thought pattern then of fear, of anxiety, and all these kind of things, which gives us these horrific emotions that says, I can't do it anymore. But the moment we learn to really link with the divinity within us, because the kingdom of God is in us, it's not up somewhere up there, it's in us. When we really learn to somehow connect with this incredible power which is in us, we also have our guardian spirit. And if you believe in Christ, we have got Christ and God also with us. It depends on your belief system. These are enormous, enormous powers, which are so much stronger than the worst scenario we can go through here. And if we trust these energies to help us, they may not immediately take us out of that miserable situation, but they can calm our mind and can then show us slowly a way out of it, and also maybe the positive side in it, because every horrific situation has a positive element. And when we focus on the element why we have experienced it, we can then slowly maybe do the very last step is actually become grateful for it. I mean, that's the climax of the whole thing. To all the painful at the moment, like Helen Keller, who was very sick and who was as a child got blind and deaf, but in the later ages, she said, "I'm very grateful for my illnesses, because without that, we would have never developed my relationship to God."
Yeah, and it is interesting when you do when you do get on the other side of a traumatic time, or even just a little bit of a wobble. It doesn't trauma. It doesn't always have to be traumatic. It can be a thought that you start exploring. But when you do get on the other side, you're there's a kind of relief to it as well, because you've taken the opportunity. You've taken this time to use it as an opportunity to understand yourself better. See, I think spirituality is about really understanding who you naturally are at the core essence of your being. If we stripped away your body, if we stripped away your life, who are you at that core? And you can live from that core on this planet if you decide to. But and that's an unfolding event. It's not just you get to a goalpost, put the ball down, go, yeah, I've done it. It's a constantly evolving. Your awareness is constantly expanding, and that's what you want. You want to be challenged.
And
Yeah,
the other thing is, of course, once you have mastered your task, then many people are starting to help other people in the same situation. That
yeah.
is then the gift. Now we use our treasure, which we have learned, and share it and help other people in similar situations. I think that's how the next step is, how we can actually manifest our gratefulness for the experience, for our growth.
Oh,
A lot of
yeah, definitely. And I explain that like someone stands in front of the emotional jungle and picks up a machete and starts cutting through the jungle to try and find a path. And then they might come back with a backhoe and a bulldozer, and they might start building a little dirt path. And then someone comes along and says, you know what, I can put signs here, I can direct you, I can make it a little bit smoother. and
yeah,
and each time someone does that path, and our paths are all unique, so you might look at someone's path over here and it'll inspire you, and there'll be something there that resonates with you, and you might look at someone's path over there and go on the other side and go, okay, that resonates with me. And the more times that people walk their particular path, we're actually building a beautiful highway for the people behind us to go, okay, what's that sign mean? And there's a map. There's a map that I can, and a map only shows you a direction, and it shows you what to look for, landmarks, but you have to experience those landmarks. You have to and you have to make decisions at those crossroads and all those kind of things. So you can never completely follow someone else's path and it going to be the same for you, but you can use their information to make it a little bit easier to identify. So
Yeah, the information and also their presence. I'm thinking of AA, Alcohol Anonymous, where they have always, what is it, a friend or somebody who has been them and helps them through. Somebody who has been an alcoholic before is the somebody, I don't know what they call it, somebody that helps them. So somebody else who has walked the path, just the presence, just to understand. It doesn't have to do much, but suddenly you can speak to somebody who has been in the same situation. That is already half the relief. Most people
yes.
have problems and they can't share it with family members because none of them understands it. But somebody who has been there before, just listening, giving an ear, allowing them to share this thing is already a tremendous help.
Oh, actually, it's unbelievable how beautiful it is to have someone that you can talk to very openly and honestly, and even more beautiful is someone that listens.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
understand.
without trying to instruct all the time, just listen.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
key. We all have to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, sometimes we get excited and jump in. Oh, so I'm going to ask you the big question. What do you think humanity needs to acknowledge and understand for us to evolve?
As I think we touched it already, this is probably one of the last lifetimes we can here on planet Earth. Time is running out. I don't have to go into all the details how the Earth is burning up. You in Australia know more than anybody else. How we actually going down in flames and many other problems here are going so fast. It's getting
Yeah.
so fast that I don't know whether how the next generation will live. In Europe, they call it the last generation, the young kids, for good reasons. So the time is running out here. We cannot play around anymore. Use the time, your own time. You cannot change the whole world. If you can, as a politician or someone else, it's great. But try to get your own act together. The freedom. Learn to love. Love is number one thing. Love everything. There's nothing else to do. And love and service go together. So clear up our mess, which we are shown every day through our negative emotions, which we get to situations in our day. They all will teach us something. We always have to clear it up through forgiveness or asking for forgiveness, whatever is necessary, and work hard on it because time is running out. I think that's the most important thing. We never had this situation on planet Earth, but planet Earth is now ready to evolve.
Right. Okay. There's our and you don't have to be fearful of your own evolution. You don't have to be fearful of your own emotions. You just have to acknowledge the truth of them. Like people people get very frightened and they have a fear response to feeling what is unresolved within themselves. So that they sort of flinch back to actually sort of when you need to lean in. And if we lean in a little bit, you'll find that it becomes easier and easier to really acknowledge what's unresolved and try not to judge yourself. Try not to
Yeah,
put yourself down. Hit it with
uh,
self-compassion.
that is absolutely right. I'm thinking of Byron Katie's famous word, we are here to love everybody unconditionally. Everybody else is here to push my buttons.
Yeah,
I think
I
we
like
have
that.
that is, and this I explained in my video on the Amazing Earth School, that our karma is actually stored in the repository planets. And when these repository planets come into a certain constellation or they are full, they download the vibration of our karma back to us. They become little building blocks of our day. So in small little chunks, we get our karma back. It can be the person who is nasty in the traffic, or it can be our colleague who is nasty. We can have a fight in the family. We can have an accident. There is no accident as such. These are all karmic vibrations coming back to us. And they are all coming in small doses we can handle. And when we are not afraid of them, but dare to look at them, because have uploaded them themselves, we are living a rewinding of our past lives. That's basically what our life is. Everything
Yes.
that we experience here is something that we have sown in a past lifetime coming back to us. So now be on it, be strong and face whatever it is, and be grateful that we now have the strength to face this problem. It can be a disastrous illness. It can be the loss and the death of a very loved one. But everything is here to teach us, number one is freedom, freedom and love. And when we see this, so not be afraid of facing our emotional wobbles, you care them, your emotional charges which we have, because they are a gift. They are giving to us. And we knew this prior our birth, as you alluded earlier. We are shown an outline of our life, the major points of what will happen in our lifetimes. We knew it. And we all agreed to come here and face it because we knew this was a great opportunity. So even the most horrific situation which we may be facing right now, we have agreed to face, and we are not alone. We are never alone to face it. We just have our family and friends if we have, but much stronger is the strength in us, the divinity in us, which wants to help us, because from the spiritual perspective it looks totally different. Those, I mean, 800,000 hours is nothing. 30,000 days is nothing. It's like going to a movie for 2 hours and then coming back again. That's why we are here in such a short time. And we take it so very, very important. But it isn't. It's basically only a school, a class. And if we take it as such, it becomes also much easier that our true identity, our true essence is not of this world and for this world. We are only here temporary. And this world is very, very unique because everywhere else in the universe runs by the law of like attracts like. And here on planet Earth, we are given the opportunity to be also attracted or be in vicinity with other souls of different vibrations. That's why planet Earth is so different, that souls of different vibrations can live and incarnate at the same time. It is a great opportunity because some person we have maybe heard in the Egyptian time when we incarnated, maybe a totally differently evolved soul on a much higher or lower level. But now in this here on planet Earth, we both can come back again and solve and undo past karma together. That's why the planet Earth is so unique, because it allows souls from many different vibrations and different spiritual backgrounds to come together at the same time and interact.
Well, that's impressive. So it's and do you think people are becoming more and more aware of the reincarnation and that they are born this lifetime with this purpose? Do you think we are becoming more aware of this?
I don't know where the overall number of people who believe in it is really growing tremendously. I don't know. A lot of people are stuck in their belief system and their religion. Well, half of the world population knows about reincarnation, but that doesn't mean they live by it. I mean, we have got a lot of suffering as well in India, which knows about reincarnation, but people still inflict pain and suffering there as well as they do everywhere else, in spite of the teachings of reincarnation. So knowing a reincarnation doesn't help us, like the whole spiritual path. Knowing the spiritual path is of zero importance. We have to apply it. That's the key. We have to really do the walking and not talk about the walking.
Oh, so agree. And what's your view? Could you explain to people what spiritual bypassing is? Because we do get a lot of that.
Spiritual bypassing, I never heard that expression. What do you understand of it? I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. So spiritual bypassing is where we use a spiritual belief to overshadow the truth of what we need to resolve. So instead of resolving the issue and really dealing with ourselves and honestly and taking an honest and self-responsibility approach to whatever is unresolved within us, we overshadow it with a spiritual belief and tell ourselves we've already sorted it out. And what it does is have people controlling themselves to these spiritual beliefs. I've got to be more positive, so I'm a positive person, instead of being present in what they're experiencing and being honest about their internal reactions. They're controlling themselves to perform a spiritual image.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I fully agree with that. We have to solve these emotional charges. We cannot suppress them. Well, having positive thoughts and speaking always positive, people do it, but it doesn't work. I mean, they try it maybe for 5 minutes and so on. Then eventually it comes up. The negative emotions comes up. That is there. And a very typical example is always when people are easily bored. And boredom is basically nothing else than emotional charges coming up which we do not want to deal with. So then we go to the TV, have Netflix, or we have computer, we have TikTok, and etc., so that we don't deal with it. But that's where basically is boredom. People are afraid of boredom. But boredom is here to help us, to make us understand, hey, there's an uncomfortable feeling. I don't want to sit here and nothing to do, etc., because there is this emotion in us. And it just behooves us to sit down and say, what is it? What is it? I made a TED talk on that one, which is actually the way how I found a lot of stories for my children books, by actually facing my boredom emotions and looking at them. Where do they come from? And I find then usually the reasons for it very clearly. And I use these incidents in my own life and put them into the animal world and put them into books, and so make money out of that way instead of going to a shrink. But by just looking at the boredom, what is the source of my boredom? I think one of the biggest danger we have is the easiness of distractions.
Yeah. I
And that's
so
how you
agree.
make a spiritual bypass. We can so easily say, oh, let's have a happy movie and so on. Let's not deal with the situation. That is, of course, not facing what is really coming up. And if we do not face what is coming up right now, the planets will shift. It will not come maybe back for a long time. And the situation to clear it may be gone. It may not be there tomorrow or the next day. Therefore, it behooves us to look at it whenever it comes up, to use that very precious moment to see what it is. And it may not always be possible right there when we drive the car, when we have this negative thought, but in the evening, before we go to bed, to maybe look at it and says, what were these highly charged moments in my life today where I was really upset, or maybe even very, very happy and elated, can also be a message. But what was this thing which made me so upset? And go deeply into it and said, what does it remind me of? Where could it come from? Is there anything I have to do to clear up? Is there forgiveness to be done? Is there any remorse to me feeling? Because remorse is very, very important, to feel that we have done something wrong, because that stores itself in our soul. And whenever we deeply feel remorse, it is a vibration. That vibration helps us next time we are tempted to drink again, for instance, in alcoholism, that suddenly the remorse in memory comes back and says, oh, let's not do it. So, but simply, I forgive myself, I give the rest, etc., doesn't do it. We have to feel remorse deeply about our true mistakes. And that message creates basically our subconscious, our conscience. So that
Conscience.
next time we do the right thing in life, also when we go back and have the life review as well, see, it will all come up again.
Yeah.
So,
Can you explain the life review for our listeners when we
well,
go
the
back?
life review is something which we all go through in the death process. Many before the die, many after the die. Eventually, it's always different. Everybody dies differently. There is no one way how people die.
That's true. Yeah.
And the life review is basically to reflect back, what have we done right in this lifetime where we have hurt other people. And the only judge is ourselves. Now, we may be supported by our guardian spirits and other divine spirits to help us to look at this life we just had, but not in a judgmental way, and not telling you how bad we were. The biggest judge, we are always ourselves. We are highly critical about ourselves. So there we will see the mistakes we have done and the missed opportunities we have had. So all this will come up eventually, and therefore it behooves us to be sort of vigilant and be very, very aware of what is happening today. And mostly, as you always point, it's the emotions coming up. Whatever stirs us or gives us emotion, that's the key element here. Here's something to be cleared up.
Yeah, I actually talk to my clientels about resistance, denial, and avoidance. And I
Mm-hmm.
go, it can work for you, but somewhere along the line, that's all coming back, whether it's this life, another life, or on the other side when you're doing your review. You're not escaping it, you're just storing it. And when you get your head around that, you go, oh, well, if I resist this, I'm just going to store it. I may as well do it now. I may as well look at it now.
Always the example of the wealthy man who marries always the same type of trophy wife, always one after the other, never realizing it's not the woman who is the mistake, it's himself. Because he marries always the same woman and never is happy with him for a long time. Yeah,
That's it.
we continue with our mistake because we are not willing to look at why this happened.
Yeah. Well, you've given us lots to think about. I think it's time to play Flip the Book. So, would you like book 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2. Okay, so that is actually Breaking Free from the Chains of Silence. It's a book written for childhood abuse victims, but at the back of the book, there's a section that tells you a little bit about your soul, like the essence of your soul. So, could you give me a number between 189 and 215?
211.
And you have 5 paragraphs to pick from. Second. Okay, so this comes under the heading Serenity. Serenity is felt while unconditionally loving true source, divine origin consciousness. So, where we come from, whatever label you want to put on that. So, our origins and your soul. So, serenity is felt while unconditionally loving your own origins and your soul. It is to be internally joyous and respectful of your own clarity and to magnetize, and to magnetize your significance. So I keep going to magnetize, which I think is not the word that's there, but it's kind of, I'm stuck on it, so I'm going to go with it. I think what you're doing with your videos is you're letting us all know how significant we are, and that and then we need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, as long as we do not think it the ego way, says I'm very special. As long as we don't go in that direction, that I'm more special than you.
Yes.
We are important. Yes, we are important. We are a child of God, which is a divine creation.
Yeah.
And as we said, and I think I would like rather the word respecting, self-respecting, to use
Self-respecting.
self-respecting it and do not hurt ourselves, which means negative thoughts and negative food and negative spending time, etc. As we do this out of self-respect, we do not do this, or we are careful of doing this. So self-respecting. There is the one thing which came to my mind sometimes, Mike Gabrielis, he said that sometimes it's the opposite as well. When we are so sitting in a group and so on, and everything goes on, and so, etc., and we are all sort of charged by other energies and so on. Sometimes it just helps. It says, "I'm not important." Just to say, I am not important. Now, this does not mean that we are not important in the eyes of God, but in this circle of the world, which is not the earth, but the world energy, just take our ego back. I am not important. Once we can do this, there is so much freedom in these words. I am not important. It really doesn't matter what I think, what I say, whether anybody listens to me, whether anybody, etc. I am not important. Let the word go on as it pleases. I go my way. But the moment I think I'm important and have to share this and have to do this, etc., I'm also in my ego trap. So sometimes it helps to say to ourselves, I am not important. It's not to put us down and we are less than anybody else. It's just only I don't have to compete with anybody else.
Yeah, it's definitely in the exploration in the explanation of what you're saying there, because I think, because I deal with a lot of people's unresolved emotions, like when they're clientele, they're coming in the door with this feeling of not good enough, unworthy, and I spend a lot of time to remind them, if you are born, you are significant, and
Yeah,
that we're an all unique, and there's an equality to all souls, regardless of what experience we're having, because it's only just different experiences we're having. Whether you're a CEO of a multimillionaire or a head of a country, that's just an experience. You and I, there's an equality in our souls. So it's recognizing the equality of all souls, and you can't recognize the true value of your own significance if you're not recognizing the significance of everybody. And I think we're
right.
saying the same things, but just in a
Saying the same
different way of
thing.
explaining it. So, and I think that when we are looking at serenity, that means that the systems that we're in are all working in harmony. And if our within ourselves we're working in harmony with our soul, you feel an inner serenity. And it says here, serenity invokes a level-headedness, which is important for the resolution of whatever is shackling you to the chains of oppression, so suffering, that causes you to panic and exist in an anxious state. Serenity creates an intent to be present while valuing the truth of your soul and the significance of being a friend to yourself. So that self-compassion and nurturing your way through whatever your resolutionary path is, whatever it is you do have to, lean into and have a look at.
Yeah, very true. I like that. Well, the other two things which will come to mind to achieve serenity, of course, is at least to learn to meditate. I mean, that's very helpful to get into this stage of meditation, of calming one's mind, the monkey mind. And the other thing is also to step away from the tapestry of life and see it, the whole thing from a very big picture,
Mm.
wherever we are and whatever. When we suddenly see the big bird eye view and see how everything connects and how we are sort of uh, how everything makes sense. I have a wonderful story. And a doctor said that told me that she was one time she was she was, I think she was working in a hospice, and she took a rest and she was closing her eyes, and suddenly she was in a different state of mind, and she saw this enormous room where the ceiling was lots of pictures, and all these pictures of her own life. There were scenes from her own life painted on the ceiling. And in the center of the room, there was this angelic being. And she looked up and says, "Oh my God, now I see everything makes sense. Everything fits together like a big puzzle." She said, "And if I only had known this, I wouldn't have been so worried and fretting all the time." And then the spirit being put the finger on her mouth and says, "Even that worrying was part of the perfection."
Mm.
So I love this story. So wherever we are, sometimes you see the big picture and see it all makes sense in a way. And even if it doesn't make sense at the moment, but there is an overrunning sense of everything. And we have created it for ourselves to become free again. We are just facing ourselves, and everything is here to bring us home. Everything, even the most horrific situation, the most difficult person, whatever happens in our life is here to bring us home. Everything happens for us and not to us.
Oh, that's a lovely statement. Well, thank you, Hans. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
It was a pleasure, Lorraine. I loved meeting you and to hear your thoughts. And I think it was just wonderful. I learned a lot. Thank you so much.